We're a quarter of the way through the season. Now is the time to make the type of deals that can change the outcome of your fantasy team. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Chris, and I'm going to give you some of my favorite buy low wide receivers as we head into week 5. Let's start with a big name, and that is Ja'Marr Chase. People are freaking out about Ja'Marr Chase right now. Had that nice week 1, but that was pretty much without T. Higgins. Last 3 weeks, it's been all Higgins and very little Chase, and people are starting to wonder if they drafted the wrong Bengals wide receiver. Should they have just waited a couple rounds and gotten T. Higgins? And look, maybe Higgins will be more consistent than Ja'Marr Chase this year, but Ja'Marr Chase is still an elite wide receiver, an elite talent, and he's tied to Joe Burrow, and we have seen what kind of upside Ja'Marr Chase brings to the table. Ja'Marr Chase was a guy who was kind of drafted in the middle of the first round, but it's not going to require that kind of a player to go get Ja'Marr Chase because his value has dropped significantly over the last 3 weeks. And you don't want to wait around and hope his value continues to drop, and then he has a huge game and everybody says, oh yeah, that's right, Ja'Marr Chase is still great, and now you can't trade for him. Kind of like what we saw with Justin Jefferson, right? Coming out of week 3, his value was the lowest I can ever remember it being since his rookie year. That was the time to trade for Justin Jefferson. What happened in week 4? He went off. You can't trade for Justin Jefferson anymore. That window has closed. And your window for Ja'Marr Chase is closing. This might be the only week you can actually trade for him. Now, don't go lowball people, but go out and look at the team who has Ja'Marr Chase. What do they need? Do they need running back help? Maybe they need wide receiver help because they have Ja'Marr Chase and not much else, and they're struggling at wide receiver. Help them. Send them somebody who's good. Maybe send them a good running back and a good wide receiver and get a potential stud wide receiver for your team, because let's be real, studs win fantasy championships. Ja'Marr Chase right now, we have to still assume he's going to be a stud. He's going to be an awesome wide receiver. So if you can get him, do it. All right, another wide receiver who maybe doesn't have the name recognition of Ja'Marr Chase, but who I think will be an absolute stud this year is Michael Pittman. Had a great week 1, missed week 2 with the injury, had a good week 3, and then a really down week 4. But look, we've seen guys have down weeks. It happens to everybody. It doesn't matter how good they are. Everybody has down weeks. But people are really panicking right now. They're panicking about Matt Ryan. They think he's terrible. They think he can't support Michael Pittman, even though he just threw for over 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, now JT's hurt. The offense looks terrible. They're just worried about this whole situation. Don't let one down week change your opinion of a player. Michael Pittman is a great wide receiver. Michael Pittman is the clear number 1 alpha wide receiver on this team. He's going to be great. But right now, people don't think he's going to be great. They're very nervous about Michael Pittman. I hear it from people in our Discord all the time. They are terrified. They are worried about Michael Pittman. They are worried that Matt Ryan is terrible and can't support Michael Pittman. He can. Pittman will be fine. Go buy Pittman low if you can. This is a guy who I still think will be a top 10, maybe top 8 fantasy wide receiver this year. He's got all the potential upside. And look, if Jonathan Taylor misses time, they're just going to have to throw the ball even more. Go see if you can get Michael Pittman at a relative discount. You won't regret it. All right, now let's talk about a wide receiver whose value I think went way too high and now is way too low, and that is Jalen Waddle. After weeks 1 and 2, people thought Miami's offense was going to be the breakout offense this year. They thought Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill were going to break fantasy football, and it hasn't happened, right? And another big thing is we just saw on Thursday night, of course, Tua with that unfortunate injury. Now people are worried about Teddy because Teddy came in. He didn't really look Jalen Waddle's way. He threw to Tyreek Hill. He threw to Trent Sherfield. He didn't really look at Jalen Waddle very much. And people are really worried that Tua is going to miss significant time. And I don't want to make light of it and say it's just a concussion, because it's obviously a very serious thing, but it's still only a concussion, and we haven't heard anything more that he's had any kind of issues with brain swelling or bleeding or anything like that would make us think he's going to miss a prolonged amount of time. Sure, maybe they'll be more cautious with him this time. Let's hope they are, right? But even still, even if he misses a few weeks, you'll be okay. I still think Waddle will be fine with Teddy B, and of course he'll be fine with Tua. And right now, people are very panicked about Jalen Waddle because, again, Teddy and no Tua. And right now, people are very panicked about Jalen Waddle. So now is the time to strike. Go out, get Jalen Waddle. He's got a high floor in PPR leagues with a decent ceiling. He's a great buy low wide receiver if you can get him. All right, moving on to another receiver. Probably his value was too high coming into week 4, and now I think it's too low, and that is Devonta Smith. Week 1 did literally nothing. Weeks 2 and 3 had great games. Week 4 didn't do nothing, but did very little here in week 4. And now people are thinking, well, maybe week 2 and 3 was just kind of a fluke. This is still A.J. Brown's team. They just want to run the ball. Jalen Hurts runs around the goal line, right? There's all kinds of reasons that they make excuses for why Devonta Smith can't be good. But this game here, it was played in terrible weather. It was freezing cold. The Eagles didn't throw the ball very much. It just wasn't really conducive to a big game for Devonta Smith, even though on paper it was a great matchup. But the rest of it just wasn't very good for him. Devonta Smith is still a great wide receiver. He's tied to a great quarterback. He's in a great offense. And he's on a team with a great defense who gives the offense more snaps and more opportunities. Devonta Smith is a guy I view as an every week starting wide receiver with tons of upside. Almost has to be in your lineup. And maybe the person who has Devonta Smith is still a little worried because they think week 2 and 3, maybe that was just a fluke. He can't do that again. Now is the time to strike. Go try to get Devonta Smith. All right, Gabe Davis, after week 1, sky high value, right? You weren't getting Gabe Davis from anybody. But now, you might be able to get Gabe Davis, and it might not take much at all because missed week 2 with the ankle injury, played in week 3, didn't look 100%, didn't look great. Played here in week 4, didn't look great again. Isaiah McKenzie has a touchdown in back-to-back games. People starting to get really, really nervous about Gabe Davis. I mean, remember, prior to the draft, people were kind of on the fence about Gabe Davis. Like, yeah, he's tied to Josh Allen, but is he really any good? Can he really make it happen? They're starting to think they were right. He can't make it happen, and he isn't very good. Take advantage of that. Go get Gabe Davis. Sure, Gabe Davis doesn't bring a high weekly floor to your lineup, but he brings an incredibly high weekly ceiling, a week winning type of ceiling. And he is tied to Josh Allen, and he is dealing with an ankle injury. He's not 100% right now. When he gets right and he gets to 100%, I think Gabe Davis is going to have a great rest of the season. Yes, he'll have some highs and he'll have some lows, and you have to ride with that. But when he has the highs, they're really high. And it's hard to find wide receivers who have that kind of ceiling who you can trade for without having to break the bank for them, right? I mean, Chase, yeah, he's a great buy low, but you're still going to have to give up a considerable amount to get Jamar Chase. You won't have to do that with Gabe Davis. And no, he doesn't have the ceiling of Jamar Chase, but his ceiling is high enough for a guy that you can get at a pretty big discount right now. All right, I've talked about a lot of young guys. Let's go to some older guys, and let's start with one that's not really very exciting but can help your fantasy team, and that's Tyler Lockett. He's gotten double-digit PPR points in 3 straight games, and he's had at least 8 targets in each of those games with 11 targets in 2 of those games. The nice thing about Tyler Lockett is he doesn't run the deep routes, right? He's not like DK Metcalf. He doesn't run the low percentage tough throws. He runs the short, easy throws. Look, I know Geno Smith was great in week 4, but that was the Lions. We can't expect Geno Smith to be great the rest of the season. Geno Smith, just like Carson Wentz the first 2 weeks, gonna come crashing back down to earth because he's not a great NFL quarterback. He's just not. And Tyler Lockett runs the routes that are easier throws, the higher percentage throws. No, Tyler Lockett doesn't have a big ceiling in this offense because it's still Geno Smith. But like I said, he has a very high PPR floor. If you're in a deeper league or you need an every week flex that you can just put in your lineup and feel fairly good about, I think Tyler Lockett fits that bill perfectly, and his value is almost nothing right now because he hasn't been putting up big fantasy games. Like, he's probably just sitting on somebody's bench scoring his 12 to 13 points, and the person probably has hardly noticed that they even have Tyler Lockett, to be honest. So go out, see if you can get Tyler Lockett relatively cheap. If nothing more, he's a great bye week fill-in when the buys start hitting here, and you'll really need him at that time. And then finally, I talked about on the running back buy low video a couple of guys that if you're sitting at 4-0 or 3-1 and you don't need them right now, you should go out and try to trade for. And here's a wide receiver I think you should go try to trade for right now if you're also in that position. That is DeAndre Hopkins. Gonna miss the next 2 weeks, of course, with the suspension, but then he's back in week 7. And the nice thing about DeAndre Hopkins coming back is this isn't a guy coming back from injury where you have to wait and see how he looks. There's a risk of re-injury. No, he's coming back from a suspension. He should be 100% ready to go in week 7. No limitations, no physical limitations or anything like that. And look, the Cardinals need him. I know they looked better here in week 4 against the Panthers, but this passing attack really, really needs DeAndre Hopkins. They need somebody, that guy when it's like 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, that Kyler Murray knows will be there and can get the first down to move the chains. And Hopkins, he wasn't great last year. He didn't have that elite, kind of upside and ceiling we were used to, but he was still very good, and he'll still be very good as a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 3. Now, there's a chance that the person who has Hopkins, who's been stashing him for 4 weeks, is doing just fine and has no desire to get rid of Hopkins. But maybe the person who has Hopkins is sitting at 1-3, 0-4, and they need fantasy points right now. They can't wait 3 more weeks for DeAndre Hopkins to come back. If you're in a position where you can wait, take advantage of that and go get him. Give him a wide receiver that they can start right now. Maybe somebody on your bench who's not, you don't need to start week in and week out, and you can wait for Hopkins to get back, and he can be a huge upgrade to your roster and help you down the stretch. All right, now you know some buy low wide receivers. You need to know buy low running backs. You need to know who to start, who to sit, who's going to boom. We have you covered with everything you need to help you win your week 5 matchup. Check out this playlist right here. 10 videos to help you win and dominate.